Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Strand Theater. My name is Brittany Parker, and I'm the Education Manager here at the Strand. And I could not be more excited right now to be broadcasting to you live from our green room. This is such a special place and it has just built so many memories over the years. It's a spot that we've all really missed throughout this year, and it's the perfect place for our brand new program. It's called Green Room Artist Chats, and I'm really, really excited to share this with all of you, and here's why. You see, as an arts venue worker, we get some special access to the performers who perform here. Right? You know, we get to watch them warming up. We get to watch them during sound check. We might get a sneak peek at what sort of instruments they're bringing in, or props or lights. We get to have conversations with them in the hallway, sometimes right here in the green room. You know, we really get to know them in a personal way while they're here at the Strand. And so we're lucky to have this access to these artists, and now we want to share that access with all of you at home. So all of our Green Room Artist Chats are going to be a chance for you to get to know some of the artists that we're presenting here at the Strand, whether that's right here on our stage, which is above me, or in our virtual stage space, which of course is the case for our programs this spring. Now, tonight you are in for a treat. We have Miwa Matreyek here. She is the creator performer behind Infinitely Yours. Infinitely Yours is a beautiful, breathtaking performance piece. It's all about our changing climate and man's impact on that change. And it's available now to stream on our website. So that link is in the comments. You can head to that link after this broadcast and you can buy a ticket for $0 to $20. It's pay what you can structure. And once you buy your ticket, you'll get a link to watch this performance. And we are also so lucky to have Lisa Pohlmann here with us tonight. She's the CEO of the Natural Resources Council of Maine. And she's here to help us put this amazing work that Miwa has created into context for us here, those folks who are living in Maine, and helping us with some resources to learn how we can combat climate change right from our home, and to learn more about the great initiatives that the Natural Resources Council of Maine is doing. So we're so thankful to have both of them here. Now, I just want to let you all know that if you do have a question at any time throughout the broadcast, you can type it into the chat. I see we already have our first question from Jaina. So we will make sure to ask that when we have Miwa come into the space. So if you have a question, maybe you watched Infinitely Yours, maybe you caught the stream earlier today, or maybe you're planning to watch it later, or maybe you know Lisa Pohlmann and you know the Natural Resources Council of Maine and you have a burning question about that. So please feel free to type it into the comments and we'll get to it as soon as we can. We can't promise that we have all the answers, but we will try. We'll try our best. All right, so before we bring out Miwa, I'm going to go ahead and share a preview of her great performance with you. So this is just a little sneak peek at Infinitely Yours. And now we have Miwa Matreyek here with us. Miwa, thank you so much for joining us in the green room tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I was just blown away by your piece. I got a chance to watch it today, and it was so breathtaking and it was so powerful. Just the way that you embody so many of the different elements, both with yourself and your shadow, and also with the projections and the animations. Your work is very unique. Would you be able to talk a little bit about what your process has been like in creating the work that you do?
Sure. So I come from a background in animation, not theater and performance, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's what I got my degree in was animation at Cal Arts near Los Angeles.
Mhm.
But in the process of making animation and being in art school, I started to collaborate with people from theater and puppetry and music. Um, and that kind of broadened me from thinking about animation as just something that exists on the screen or on a computer monitor at
Right.
film festivals, but something that I can actually enter into and become a part of. Um, so that was like, oh yeah, here's some slides, some context, and also what you just saw in Reel, that my shadow is documentation that we're showing right now, but in a theater space, my shadow is real. So, the audience, you can see the audience here in front of, in this theater space.
Mhm.
Um, but, sorry. I think it's confusing. I'm trying to click on the StreamYard, but I have to go to the keynote.
Yes.
Yeah. So what the audience see versus what's behind the screen. So you can see
Wow.
on the right side, this is my real body. Behind the screen, I have it's mostly done through muscle memory, kind of like a choreography of a dancer. And I know the timing through knowing the music really well. But there's also a few spike marks. So there's tape lines on the floor. So I know where to kneel to create the right composition of my shadow with the imagery. And also there's a few moments where I have a mirror that's hidden too. So I could look at
Oh, wow.
it and line it up. Actually,
Oh,
I'm not sure if I use it for Infinitely Yours, but I do for some of my other pieces.
yeah.
So my practice became about integrating my shadow with my animations. But as I mentioned, my process, my whole journey started out with collaboration. So I kind of have a parallel narrative with a theater company that I started while in grad school called Cloud Eye Control, with whom I have a series of work as well, including two evening late theatrical pieces. And my work, both for my solo work as well as with the theater company, the work often has to do with this kind of contentious relationship between nature and humans. Um, so that's been kind of a recurring theme in the work.
Yes, and of course is very prevalent in Infinitely Yours. So can you tell us a little bit about this piece in particular? I did see a clip of you talking about sort of what led you to make this piece and some of the materials that you used when you were creating it. Can you share a little bit about that process?
Of course. So I started making this piece in not making, but thinking about the piece in 2016 or so. But it premiered in 2020, so it's kind of a long process of tinkering, experimenting, thinking, as well as doing a lot of collecting of ideas. So this piece is very much inspired by sort of my climate grief, my climate anxiety, and I think also in the last 5 or 6 years or so, there's been a lot more information and news about climate change. Not that climate change hasn't been happening for a very long time, like decades, but I feel like there's kind of a collective turn of attention and kind of an undeniability that feels more present in the media. So I was collecting news articles. Here's some, screen caps of some of the headlines of the kinds of articles I was collecting and putting them all into an app called Evernote, just as a note-taking tool. And this kind of became part of my process of world building, which is sort of collecting these research materials and the kind of world that I'm going to create visually, right? And the kind of stories that I want to tell. So I was really using news items as part of the inspiration. And from there, taking some of those concepts and imagining how I could turn them into these visual collaged animation moments and performance, as well as some other information, such as I came across a statistic that Americans create about 4.5 pounds of trash a day. And that's, a day. And that's, shocking statistic. And I was, when you hear a number like that, how does that make your body feel? How does it make us feel? And when we say 4.5 pounds of trash daily, what does it mean for it to be per week, per month, per year, per lifetime? So I created, moments like this in the performance where I'm in the landfill and there's just like trash pouring out of my body. And, it's not like a scientific visual of like the 4.5 pounds. I think it's that kind of like, I'm trying to illustrate the emotion reaction that kind of information elicits in me and what it feels like to know that I'm, just creating so much waste.
Yeah, and that was such a powerful part about your performance in this piece was you were at, both times you were the destroyer in a way, and you were the victim, and that's kind of what we're all conflicted with, when we're talking about saving our planet. And just as you said, that number, shocking, kind of takes you aback. 4.5 pounds, wow, that's a lot. And to know that we are causing that and we are the victim of that. And you do that so beautifully with your shadow throughout this piece.
Yeah, something that's, I need to go back to this slide, but in the process of working with shadow and performance, something that's been really interesting for me to keep digging into and keep experimenting with is that as a shadow, I kind of become a symbol of a person rather than someone very specific in front of the audience. So my shadow can take on almost these like consciousnesses that are larger than me, larger than, an individual person.
Absolutely.
So I can really play with that where, for example, you can see my cursor, right?
Yes.
Okay. For example, there's a moment in the piece where I'm stuck in traffic and like screaming in the car, and you can see it's like kind of gridlock traffic in the image. And we're really familiar with this individual experience.
Yes.
And sort of like that climate anxiety that it elicits where you're just like, kind of stressed out. But then a moment later, this shifts into a moment where my shadow somehow becomes larger than life and kind of becomes a little bit more surreal. And I dig into the ground and pull out oil and, shove it into my mouth. So in this case, my shadow represents humanity or society or, I don't really make it specific, but it's not an individual's experience anymore. It's almost like a symbolic. It's kind of like there's an image of like an individual experience as well as a symbolic experience of us, the larger us, and two ideas of seeing gas guzzling, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you watch the piece, throughout the piece, you'll see sometimes I'm like in the kitchen interacting with things as if I'm like an individual person at home, but then there's also moments where I'm going to skip ahead. Oh, well, this is from a different piece, but, the world becomes more abstracted and somehow my shadow represents a different kind of entity, a different kind of consciousness, a different kind of state of being. So that's been really interesting for me to play with. And I guess this also ties into the process. I'm going to keep going.
Sure, yeah, no, please do.
So also part of the process is that there was a lot of my kind of daily life that got wrapped, kind of brought into the piece. There's a lot of scenes with trash and especially plastic trash in my piece, including a scene where I'm, like making bottled water in the factory, but also drowning in an ocean full of plastic. And of course the landfill scene. And a lot of the imagery were things that I specifically shot for the piece that came from my own trash. So I just shot them in these loops so I can make it look like they're tumbling out of me or, floating in the ocean.
Wow, that's from your own trash. Wow.
Yeah. So of course, in the process of doing that, I start to have this really, I think we all struggle with the amount of waste that we produce in this kind of throwaway, disposable kind of society that we live in. Everything from like a plastic fork to even the yogurt containers, right? Yes. So I really had to kind of contend with that and struggle with that in the process of making the piece. Might be jumping ahead to some of,
No, that's great. And, we can throw in the question that we got from our audience member.
Okay.
Jaina says, the music was amazing. Was it composed for this piece or did you adapt it for this performance?
Great. So the music is all by my friend Morgan Sorn. I think in the link where the video plays, I have links to the musician Morgan Sorn.
Back in.
But the music wasn't composed specifically for the piece, actually. When I started having ideas and concepts for the work, I approached my friend Morgan, and he gave me permission to go through like his, large discography. I think he has like 7 or 8 albums, and just start going. I knew that I wanted to use music that was really emotionally intense, so that's why I kind of went towards Morgan. But he let me go through his discography and start to identify the songs that felt energetically right for the scenes. And then he gave me permission to use them. Some of the pieces we did have to have him adjust it a little bit to make it a little bit shorter for the scene, or take out a section. So he was very wonderful to help me with like some editing with the songs, but mostly there were songs that existed before. And in fact, he kind of has, they're kind of like a series of concept albums. So the albums themselves have kind of a built-in story to them. So I'm kind of like coming in and like reusing them in a different context. But yeah.
And what's his name again? I'll just type it into the chat.
Oh yeah. It's Morgan, so Morgan. Yep. And his last name is Sorn, so Sorne. And his website is sorn.com.
Perfect. All right. So that's going right into the chat. So check those comments for that link. Do you ever have musicians performing music live with you during these shows?
Yes. So because for Infinitely Yours, all the music is by Morgan, and he makes most of his music as like layers with loops and his vocals.
Yes.
So we were lucky that for some of the showings that we did before the pandemic shutdown, we had him performing, or we as in me, and him. He was performing with me.
Wonderful.
So yeah, for most of the touring, I normally do it by myself as a solo, and the music is pre-recorded. But we made it so there's an option where he can perform with me and like travel with me.
That's amazing. Well, we hope that someday you'll be traveling back here to Maine. We originally had you scheduled, I think it was for April of last year. So, we were really sad to have missed that live opportunity, but are so grateful for this virtual presentation. I have just one more question for you. And, there's so much to take away from this piece. If there was sort of one big idea that you would want the audience to take away, or maybe it's something that you yourself took away, in the process of making this piece, what would that be?
I think part of the process was, for me, there was a way of digging deep into the grief and anxiety as a way to kind of have to confront it. The piece has, I think it's kind of open to interpretation. It has kind of a hopeful ending, but unclear.
Yes, there is definitely hope there. Yes.
Yeah, there is regrowth. But there's also death. But at least for my intention, it's very open to audience interpretation because there's no text. But again, I think for me, in the process of making this piece, I think for an artist, it's important to let your piece change you with each piece that you make, because there's so much research. Because there's so much thinking about a specific topic. I think your art practice is supposed to also impact, well, you or me, the artist as well.
Right.
So yeah, one of the things I wanted to show was that in the process of making this piece and, again, documenting all this plastic trash that I was creating, I started going through a process of doing plastic audits where I would collect my trash over a month. So instead of, putting it all into the blue bin and having it disappear with the municipal trash trucks, is to I mean, I still did that anyway, but collecting it for a month so that I can actually look at where I've made choices that involve plastic and how I could change my practices of shopping and consuming.
Wow. Yeah, just keep it all so you can look at it all for the month. That is,
Yeah, it's interesting when you actually like collect it and look at it, and you're like, oh, here are places where I can, go to the bulk bin, or here are places where I can make a different choice, go to the farmer's market. Of course, this is kind of thrown out the window with the pandemic and not having us, not wanting to make extra grocery trips, or I think bulk bins, they're not doing bulk bins because of sanitary reasons and stuff like that.
right.
Of course, I think a lot of us are doing more like shipping options to avoid the stores.
Yeah.
But I think kind of struggling through this is part of the process, like struggling through the grief, struggling through sort of your personal choices and where you can make changes, I think is what leads us towards maybe hope, or leads us towards feeling like you can move towards action with more positivity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Melissa makes a comment here. She says, I don't know if I'm ready for that level of accountability, but it's something that has been on my mind lately. Thanks for the encouragement. So that's great. Yes, it's all about that encouragement. It's all about encouraging each other. She also had one question, just so we are sure everyone is sure. When the performance is live, is the shadow art made live? And that is correct. Yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you had performed here live last April, all of your shadow work would have been you performing live. And of course, with the projection sort of layered, are they coming from the front and the back?
Yes. Yeah. There's front and rear projection. And in the video at the link, you'll see me. So I shot it in my living room last, I think, August. And you'll notice that I was pregnant then. So I have kind of a belly, or a pretty big belly, actually. But you'll see me, walk past the camera and go behind the screen. And at the very end, you'll come out from behind the screen and take a bow. So you'll see that I'm real.
Nice. Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's so wonderful. It's such a powerful piece. Again, we have it streaming rocklandstrand.com. You can get your ticket $0 to $20. It's up to you. Thank you so much, Miwa, for being here. And we hope to have you here live someday real soon.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope you enjoy the show.
Thanks, Miwa. I'm certain that they will. Well, we are just about to bring out our second guest here, Lisa Pohlmann of the Natural Resources Council of Maine. And I think this is just the perfect time because now we're primed, we're ready. We're ready to do our plastic count each month. How can we do that? What are some other ways that we can help out? Well, the Natural Resources Council of Maine, they are working tirelessly every day. They have a huge member base. They have lots of volunteers working together for Maine's environment. So let me just share a fun clip that I found on YouTube that explains a little bit about their work.
Whoa!
What a great program. I love all those shots. And here's Lisa Pohlmann of the Natural Resources Council of Maine. Thank you so much for joining us here in the green room tonight, Lisa.
I'm delighted to be here, and it was so nice to get to sort of meet Miwa.
Yeah, exactly. And, this is it's such a great program. We're so glad to have you here. So for those who may not be familiar with the Natural Resources Council of Maine, Can you talk to us a little bit briefly about your mission and what
Sure.
your role is with the organization?
Sure. So NRCM has been around since 1959. That's how far back we go. And I've been involved for about 20 years between being on the board of directors and now being on the staff. And I have been the CEO since 2011. So I'm going on my 10th year. And thank you. And our whole mission is to protect the nature of Maine. And we have several different buckets of things that we do. We are looking out for our waters. We do dam removals and mining regulations and all different kinds of things that affect the water. We have a Sustainable Maine program that's all about plastic pollution right now. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute. There is also climate and clean energy. So very much what Miwa was expressing was very germane to a lot of things I can talk about right now on climate. And then we have forests and wildlife, which we've been involved in from the get-go, protecting mostly our North Woods. And then we have a federal program because Maine's congressional delegation remains very important to the whole scene in Washington. And so we are continually trying to get them to vote the right way on things that affect Maine's environment. So when I say we're trying to get people to do stuff, the winning formula has always been for NRCM the combination of having the experts on the staff who know what's coming next, know the legislators, know the political windows that exist for moving stuff forward, and then having the engagement of thousands of Maine citizens who will be the ones who will write letters to the editor or call up their legislator or sign a petition or that kind of thing. And because you're the ones who, in a sense, hire these people because you vote for them. And so there they are. And they are beholden to you as their constituents. And you have a much bigger effect than even we do in Augusta. So, of course, everything's virtual right now. And we can talk a little about how we're getting engaged and how we're trying to help other people get engaged.
Yeah, I love that so much about your organization, which I've gotten to know a lot more as I research for this chat. But I'm going to go ahead and put a link into the comments here. You have an amazing Take Action toolkit. And
that's right.
This is specific to Natural Resources Council of Maine, but you can also use it for other issues that you're passionate about. It really
that's right.
walks you step by step. So can you tell folks a little bit about what they can expect from their Take Action?
Yeah. So we have a Take Action page on our website, and you'll see it on the homepage. And that tells you like what's hot right now, what you could do if you wanted to right now. And I'll talk some of those things through in just a minute. But then we have a toolkit on that page. And that has it's got both how a law becomes a bill, how a bill becomes a law, and then some right now, how am I supposed to get involved in a legislature that's meeting virtually, for example. So we have a couple videos, then we have a video that's all about if you're going to write something or speak at a hearing, here's how to make it compelling. And here's how much time you've got, and here's how to hone in and get to the point. And so it's a good page.
It's just such super helpful tips. I mean, there's even tips, for navigating Zoom in this virtual space. And I love how direct the action is. It's really about equipping all of us with the tools so that we can best help you and the mission of the organization, but also, like I said, other issues, other causes. It's a great thing that you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, and just remember, it's really helping you because it isn't just helping us, it's helping you protect the nature of Maine, and it means a lot to all of us. I mean, today was a gorgeous day, but it's a little warm for, March. And so climate change is kind of an understory there. And these are all things that we're thinking about all the time. But of course, we're so happy that it's warm out and get to be outside. So
like we'll take what we can get. And
yeah.
ways. Well, we really appreciate your leadership on these issues and helping us through that. So I wanted to touch a little bit about the recent. So in December, our governor announced the Maine won't wait. Maine won't wait. Plan. Can you tell us a little bit about the goals of that plan and how your organization is fitting in with those goals?
Yeah, so the whole point, it's now in statute that we are supposed to get to by 2030 let me just see, I got to get this right, a huge reduction below 1990 levels of carbon reduction, and 80% by 2050. And in 2050, we're supposed to be at 100% renewable energy. So this is big. So this is the goal, and this is now in statute. And of course, this is very much premised on the notion that obviously climate change is real. I personally think we don't have to have much of a climate change is a hoax conversation in Maine, because we live, play, and work so close to the land here. We know things are changing. We know things are different. And this is all premised on the notion that climate change is real. There's carbon emissions that are human caused, and we have got to change our ways. So the number one thing that we're focused on in this climate action plan is transportation, because transportation is the next really big area that we've got to do something about. We already did something about pollution from power plants, and we did that, and that was originally kind of the biggie. And we've been doing that for a number of years now through what's called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is a New England-wide, actually it's a Northeastern-wide system of ratcheting down the allowable amount of carbon pollution from power plants, making that a little lower every year, and then charging companies for the privilege of polluting. And of course, then that's an incentive for them to keep ratcheting down as well. Wonderful. So that has worked. And we have used the proceeds here in Maine to fund energy efficiency. And that's great, because we've got a lot of old leaky houses in Maine, and we need to do something about that. Yeah. So next is transportation. So that's like the first thing. And we've got to electrify our transportation system. And that's really scary for people who are used to driving gas-powered cars and driving long distances in Maine and everything. But, the batteries are getting better, and electric vehicles are starting to come down in price, and we've just got to go there. And our heavy trucks have got to go there. Our public transportation's got to go there. And we've got to do more walking, and we've got to get our neighborhoods closer together so that we can walk to school and stores. And I mean, it's just, there's a lot to do there. And so we're going to dive right in.
That's great. I love this energy. We've got to do this. We've got to make this happen. I think it's wonderful. And along those lines, thinking about those sort of big picture things about transportation and how we get around, but also you have some great resources on your website for what we can do in our homes to make our homes more efficient. So there's like the reduce your use, the clean housekeeping, and bright ideas. I'm going to put these links to each of these PDFs in the chat because everybody has to check them out. They're amazing. Could you talk a little bit about what they'll find inside?
Sure. Yeah. Well, this is swinging back to Miwa's presentation, but she's focused a lot on plastics. So our whole Sustainable Maine program right now is focused on waste reduction, and in particular plastics reduction. And that's because, frankly, the oil industry is just kind of switching gears, and now they're creating more plastics, and we got to leave the oil in the ground, and we've got to move off of fossil fuels. That's all there is to it if we're going to meet these carbon emission reduction goals. Absolutely. So the plastic pollution thing, for example, is about trying to reduce the number of, say, for example, single-use plastic bags. So a couple years ago, we actually passed a statewide ban on single-use plastic bags. And this was after about, 14 or 15 towns had passed their own version. Right. And, Hannaford's and places like that were like, wait a minute. We'll get behind this, but please just have it be the same across the state. So we don't have to figure out 15 different, programs. So they were with us, everybody was with us. And then COVID hit and it was delayed. And, the oil folks swooped in and convinced everybody that, it was safer to use plastic bags. Regardless of what you think, by July, we're going to be back on the statewide ban. And meanwhile, there have been a bunch of bills at the legislature to undo the single-use plastic bag ban. And I'm happy to report that part of our role is to stop bad things from happening. And so we stopped those bills from happening. So that's kind of the first victory I can report from this legislative session. Yeah.
That is great. That is wonderful. Yeah. Take Action Toolkit is working.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Absolutely. So now the thing is that we're focused on. So before COVID hit, we had just had a really good legislative hearing with tons of people who came to Augusta and spoke at the State House on what we're calling recycling reform, which is basically about packaging. So think about all that stuff in Miwa's trash and all the stuff in your trash. Yes. And what could possibly change that. One thing that could is if producers have to take more responsibility for the end of life, instead of just your town getting stuck with all that packaging material and, that you now throw away and then you take to the dump or those, transfer station, and they have to figure out what to do with it. That's wrong. So this encourages companies to use more recycled material in their packaging. And if they don't, they have to pay in. And they have to pay into a program that turns around and pays the towns for having to deal with the end of life of their crap.
That's a very good system.
Yeah, and there's a number of provinces in Canada and a number of countries in Europe that have already done this, but no state has done this in the United States. So Maine would be a first, but it's high time and we need to be doing it.
Yes, Maine can be the pioneer for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we're doing right now that people could help with, so the town of Rockland, where you guys are, for example, could decide to support recycling reform. So we're trying to get towns to step up and say, we support this, because that's how we got a statewide ban on single-use plastics back along. So This is an opportunity.
Yes, change can happen on a small level, and that can go bigger and bigger. And I love that idea. Well, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you. And please, everyone who's watching, check out those links. Check out the Natural Resources Council of Maine so you can get all of those PDFs for yourself.
And check out our Citizen Action Day on March 30th, which is
coming up for all of you. What can we be helping you all with right
now? So this is an hour and a half on Zoom. Sorry about that, but that's how we have to do it this year. Normally we have everybody come to the office in Augusta, and we will again. But this is where you're going to learn about the key things that are happening right at the moment that you can get involved in, and what some of your talking points could be, and that sort of thing. So join us and register and do all that.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you again so much. I hope this gets tons more people into the organization ready to take action. We really appreciate you being here tonight with us.
Thank you so much, Brittany, for having me. And thanks to Miwa for her wonderful presentation.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that does it for our very first Green Room Artist Chat. Wow, that was incredible. What a great session. We are so honored to have had Miwa and Lisa here with us this evening. Again, if you haven't seen Infinitely Yours, you can go to rocklandstrand.com and you can reserve your ticket, $0, $5, $10, $20, whatever's comfortable for you. Go ahead and reserve your ticket and you will get a link sent to you so that you can watch the video. And please share the video, share this video with folks, get folks signed up to be a part of the Natural Resources Council of Maine. We can make change together, even if we're starting small. It's a good thing. Well, thanks so much, everyone. We're going to have more Green Room Artist Chats coming up for you in this next month. So stay tuned on our Facebook and YouTube pages for all of that info. Have a great night, everyone.